Hi everybody, this video is going to talk about multiplying polynomials, and we're going to look at a lot of different scenarios here. Now in the last video we talked about adding and subtracting polynomials, which was really just combining like terms. Multiplying polynomials is, there's more to it. There's more steps, there's more variety. So we're going to look at all of those scenarios so that you know what to do in each case. So here's what we've got. Now, this is technically a monomial, a single term, times a binomial. Well, we've talked about this a lot this year, especially when we were solving equations, that anytime I have something in front of my parentheses, I need to distribute that thing to everything inside of the parentheses. The only difference is what we're distributing this time isn't just a number, it's a variable. So we have to remember our exponent rules. If this is h to the first power times another h to the first power, we have to remember that when we have things of the same base multiplied together, we add the exponents together. Okay? So that's what we're doing here. H times h is going to give us an h squared. And when we multiply h times 4, we get plus 4h. You should always check to see if anything can combine after you multiply, but in this case, there wasn't anything that combined together. So for the next one here, we're doing the same thing. We have 9a, a monomial, times a plus 1, which is a binomial. So we're distributing. 9a times a would be 9a squared. 9a times 1 gives us plus 9a. And there we go. So this is the easiest type of problem you could have with multiplication. Anytime it's a monomial times a binomial or even a trinomial and so on, it's really just distributing, and that's all. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to try these two problems that you see. Okay, so for number 5 here, and notice that the numbering is jumping around, so on your notes, make sure you're doing the right problems here. 3c times negative 2c, I have to multiply the 3 and the negative 2 together to get negative 6. And when I multiply the c's together, I get c squared. Then I do 3c times negative 5 to get minus 15c. Okay, for the next one, a little bit of a bigger exponent. Negative 4g squared times 2g would become negative 8g to the third power. Remember, we're adding these exponents together, the 2 and the 1, to get g to the third power. Negative 4g squared times 7 gives us a negative 28g squared, so minus 28g squared. Okay, we can still do this same process for monomials times trinomials. We're just distributing to all 3 things now instead of just 2 things. So we would get x to the third power minus x squared plus 3x. Same thing here. We need to distribute to all 3. So we would get 15 m to the fourth minus 5m cubed minus 35 m squared. Okay, so really not too bad. I want you to pause the video and try this one. So this one we have a couple things going on, and what I want to stress here is that this 7x at the end is being added. The negative 2x is multiplying the 3x minus 4, so when we distribute, we should only distribute the minus 2x or the negative 2x to both things inside of the parentheses. A lot of times people are tempted to distribute the negative 2x all the way over to the 7x, but we don't want to do that because negative 2x isn't multiplying the 7x. The 7x is being added at the end, so be careful there. Okay, so we distribute, we get negative 6x squared, and then we get a plus 8x. I still have this plus 7x here, so I need to drop that down. And this time, we can combine these together. So I get negative 6x squared plus 15x. Okay, another example where we have some combinations of operations happening. We have 6x times 2x minus 3 here, and then we have minus 5 times all of this stuff. So we have two sets of parentheses that we need to distribute to. The 6 is going to distribute to each of these, and then the negative 5 is going to distribute to all three of these. We'll have a lot of terms that end up needing combined. So 6x times 2x would give us 12x squared. 6x times the negative 3 there would be minus 18x. Then we distribute the negative 5 to this trinomial. So negative 5 times 2x squared would be minus 10x squared. Negative 5 times 9x would be minus 45x. And negative 5 times negative 3 gives us a plus 15 at the end. So now we go back, we're looking for what can be combined. We have x squareds that combine. So that would give us a 2x squared. We have x's that combine. That would give us a negative 63x, so minus 63x. And then we have this plus 15 at the end that doesn't combine with anything, so it drops down. Now, we haven't talked about it in this video, but remember we have names for polynomials, and sometimes you'll be asked to give that name. So we have a degree of 2, which means it's quadratic, and we have 3 terms, which means it's a trinomial. So this will be a quadratic trinomial. All right, so let's make it a little harder. So far, we've really just done some distributing of a monomial, a single term, times a binomial, times a trinomial. It's not too bad. This is where it gets more complicated. Now, what we have is a binomial times another binomial. So the multiplication process is a little more complicated. What we're essentially doing is we're doing 2 sets of distributing. We're going to take the first term in our first binomial, and we're going to distribute it to both things in the second binomial. So that would give us an x squared plus 4x. After I do that, I need to take the second thing in my first binomial and distribute things in the second binomial. So it almost has this kind of clam shape. Once you draw in your swoops, you need to make sure that everything in the first binomial is multiplying with everything in the second binomial. Okay? So when we distribute the 2, we get plus 2x and a plus 8. We can combine, and our final simplified answer would be x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now, this is a process that typically is referred to as FOIL. I don't use that word very often, but that's what it is in a lot of places if you're watching other videos or looking at books or whatever. It stands for, oh, I can't spell here. It stands for first, outer, inner, last. And all that is it's an acronym to help you remember the order that you should be multiplying in. So first would be the first things being multiplied together. Outer represents the 2 outside things being multiplied together. Inner is the 2 inner things being multiplied together. And last is the 2 last things being multiplied together. So you can remember it that way, but I prefer to think of it just as distributing twice. Okay, to reiterate kind of what I said earlier, I said you have to take the first thing in here, distribute. Second thing in here, distribute to both. If you remember to do that, then you don't have to remember FOIL or what it stands for. That's just a common thing that you'll hear when doing these types of problems, okay? And this is for multiplying binomials, 2 binomials together. So let's see another one. We're going to take y, the first thing in my first binomial, multiply it with both things in the second binomial. So we get y squared plus y, and then we take the second thing in my first binomial and multiply it with everything in the second one. So we would get a plus 5y plus 5. We combine, we get y squared plus 6y plus 5. Okay, so it gets a little more complicated, but still, it's really just distributing. And you guys have done a lot of distributing this year. So let's see a couple more examples here. Okay, I want you to pause the video and I want you to try these on your own. Okay, so for this one, you should get k squared plus 3k. I hope I put an x here. Hold on. When we distribute the 6, we get a plus 6k plus 18. Combine the k's together, and we get k squared plus 9k plus 18. Okay, for the next one, we will get a 2x squared minus 10x plus 1x minus 5. We combine, and notice with these kind of problems, these middle terms always combine together. And we get our final answer. Okay, another 2. Almost done here. With these types of problems, honestly, repetition is key. Once you get the process down, it gets a lot easier for you. So x times 5x is 5x squared. X times negative 4 is minus 4x. Negative 1 times 5x is minus 5x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is plus 4. We combine our middle terms. And there we go. Okay. It gets a little more complicated when you have the numbers in front of the variables, so make sure you're multiplying the coefficients and the variables together here. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to get the hang of this process. Again, practice makes perfect. This takes some repetition just to get the process down and to become comfortable with it. Now, I want to jump to some, some here that have something interesting happen. Okay, so I specifically want to look at 19. When I multiply these together, we would get a 9x squared minus 3x. And then when I take my 1 and distribute, I get a plus 3x minus 1. What's interesting here is our middle terms cancel because negative 3x plus 3x would cancel. And we would just be left with 9x squared minus 1. Okay? That happens sometimes, and that is okay. So this video is just all about multiplication. It takes a lot of practice. Okay? Pause, rewatch, rewind, and please make sure you're asking questions. Hope you guys have a great day.